Everyone, welcome back to another series on Express Entry. In this one, I'm going to show you guys my top 6 tips on preparing to get your ITA. Things are starting to pick up with Express Entry, and today, tip number 1 is on its way. All right, so I'm going to dive right into this as quick as possible. Those of you who think, what's the big deal? Express Entry is simple. You submit a profile, you get an ITA, you file the application. Simple, right? Well, it's not that easy. Changes are happening with Express Entry, and with the targeted draws, you guys need to be very, very careful that you're maximizing your chances of getting your ITA. Let's slide over here, and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So tip number 1 right here, make sure your profile is updated. Those of you out there who have been sitting in the pool, and I've got some that have contacted me even today saying, oh, my profile, it's timed out. Well, those of you who have been sitting in the pool for a long period of time, things can get out of date. And I can't tell you how many times I've had consults with people where they forgot to update their work history. Maybe they ended one job and started another, or there's been problems with, number 2 here, the validity of their documents. In other words, your police clearance certificates that you thought you had valid were all fine and dandy until you returned back to India, which basically invalidated them, which required new ones. Maybe your core source documents, like your language test results, maybe because of the whole year that's passed, you're now at a point where your language test, which is valid for 2 years, is getting ready to expire. There's a whole host of things, maybe even your reference letters, right? Now, typically, if you're no longer working with a company, a reference letter that was issued after you stopped working is fine. It can be a year old, it can be 2 years old. But for your current position, remember, the key date is the date that the letter was signed. And if you've been continuing to work with that company for another 6 months, and now you have 2 years of work experience, where before, when you created your profile, you only had 1, well, IRCC is going to look at that date of the letter. And if the letter was dated before you hit the 2 years, poof, your work experience may not be counted, at least that second year, and your opportunity disappear. But this third option that I've got coming your way right here, be strategic with your knock, is the one that I'm most important that I wanted to share with you guys. Why? Because as we roll into strategic draws, and as Express Entry transforms, and it may already be there for some of you who are watching this video, the world of strategic draws places increasing importance on which knock you've chosen as your primary knock. You do not need to use as your primary knock the work experience that you have the most of. In fact, in some cases, as long as you meet the minimum eligibility requirements for either the federal skilled worker, the Canadian experience class, or the federal skilled trade, you can use that knock code even if you have work experience in another area or you have more years of experience. This is particularly important in the world of Canadian experience class, where you don't need a minimum of 1 year in only one knock. You can cobble together a bunch of different ones. So remember, when it comes to choosing your knock, your primary knock, if you're outside of Canada as a federal skilled worker and you select a knock code, basically that is, you're using just the one that you have the most of, you run into the possibility that maybe the minister, and is he around? Yes, he is. Maybe Minister Fraser pops in and he says, I want knock experience or work experience in these particular knocks, and those are the only ones that I'm issuing for this round of invitation. Well, if you chose another knock as your primary just because you had maybe 2 years of experience in that one versus the 1 year in the one the minister chose, you could miss out on your opportunity, because often it's targeted by the primary knock that you select, especially, for example, what we've seen with Ontario and the Human Capital Priority Stream, where they're choosing specific knock codes. Well, really all of them are choosing, whether they're a passive program like Alberta's Express Entry or one of the Atlantic provinces, they all go off of that primary knock. So make sure that you're being very careful. So we know that in the right now, and the future of Express Entry is really going to be driven by occupations. And so you need to pay close attention to the industries that the minister has been targeting. And as I look at the different industries, I'll just read them off here. Construction, healthcare, professional, scientific and technical services, all of these, right, are areas that the minister has focused on periodically throughout his discussions. Anything that has needs for specialized training tends to be more important than, say, an occupation that's like a food service supervisor or something like that, or just general business. So pay attention to the trends, watch the videos that I have on my YouTube channel, and above all, be strategic with your NOC and try to select one that not only meets the eligibility, because that's the first key. That NOC must allow you to meet the eligibility for one of the programs, but also is in an area that is in an in-demand industry within Canada. All right, so there you've got it. Preparing for the ITAs. This is video number 1, why you must check your Express Entry profile ASAP. All right, take care.